Now we're going to begin our look at the second New Deal. The main idea is that a new wave of government initiatives starting in 1935 resulted in some strong successes and stunning defeats for President Roosevelt. Our learning objectives are to identify the key programs of the second 100 days, explain how New Deal programs helped revive organized labor, and explain why 1937 was a troubled year for Roosevelt and the second New Deal. So looking at the second 100 days, Roosevelt launched the second New Deal in the spring of 1935. Congress passed laws extending government oversight of the banking industry and raised taxes on the wealthy. Congress funded new relief programs. The Emergency Relief Appropriations Act stopped direct payments to Americans in need. The Works Progress Administration was the largest peacetime jobs program in U.S. history. And as far as Social Security, they provided a guaranteed regular payments for many people age 65 and older. And it included a system of unemployment insurance. Now, of course, Social Security is still around today. It is still a New Deal program that has lasted. Now, as far as organized labor, the National Industrial Recovery Act, or NIRA, guaranteed workers the right to form unions and to bargain collectively. It was difficult to enforce and fatally weakened by the Supreme Court's ruling in Schechter Poultry Corporation versus the United States. Roosevelt backed the Wagner Act, or the National Labor Relations Act, also known as the NLRA, which outlawed a number of anti-labor practices, established the National Labor Relations Board, and gave it the authority to conduct voting in workplaces to determine whether employees wanted union representation. The Committee for Industrial Organization, or CIO, was born in 1935. John Lewis led this group to break away from the American Federation of Labor, or AFL. The United Auto Workers, a division of the CIO, launched a successful sit-down strike in 1936. Now, looking at the election of 1936, Roosevelt passed the Rural Electrification Act, which provided electricity to millions of farmers, showcased his achievements. Unemployment was cut in half, income and business earnings were up, New Deal programs provided hope and help, and he spoke out against big business. Now, as far as his critics, the Republicans argued that the New Deal was overly bureaucratic and was creating a planned economy. The American Liberty League tried to stop Roosevelt's attack on big business. Republican Alf Landon did not pose a serious threat. The results of the 1936 election was a tremendous victory for Roosevelt. Alf Landon carried only 2 states. The Union Party candidate polled less than 2% of the popular vote, and the Democrats again gained seats in both houses. Then we head into the troubled year of 1937. Roosevelt surprised Congress with a plan to reorganize the nation's courts. In the fall of 1937, the nation's economy suffered another setback, and although the Supreme Court began to rule in favor of New Deal legislation and the economy began to rebound in the summer of 1938, the positive feelings about Roosevelt and the New Deal had begun to fade. So this brings us to Roosevelt's court-packing plan. Roosevelt's plan gave the president power to appoint many new judges and to expand the Supreme Court by up to 6 judges. Roosevelt argued that the changes were needed to make the courts more efficient. Most observers saw the plan as an effort to pack the court with friendly justices. The plan did not pass, however. The Supreme Court made rulings that favored many new... the result of this court-packing plan, well, the plan did not pass. However, the Supreme Court made some rulings that favored New Deal legislation. The Supreme Court upheld a minimum wage law in Washington state. The court ruled in favor of a key element of the Wagner Act, and the court declared the Social Security plan to be constitutional. Now looking at the economic downturn of 1937. 1937 witnessed an economic downturn that began with a sharp drop in the stock market. By the end of the year, about 2 million Americans had lost their jobs. Roosevelt had hoped to cut back on government spending, for he feared the growing federal budget deficit. As unemployment rose during 1937 and 1938, the government spent large sums of money to help the unemployed. And this brings us now to the British economist John Maynard Keynes, who argued that deficit spending could provide jobs and stimulate the economy. This became known as Keynesian economics. The economy did begin to rebound in the summer of 1938.